I wanted to take a minute today at the beginning of the podcast and say thank you to our sponsor, Huber Engineered Woods. Huber has actually been a sponsor of the podcast since 2020 when we decided to start this little endeavor. Without our sponsors, this content is probably not something that happens. But I think the best part about having Huber as a partner on this is it's an incredibly authentic alignment. Peter, Steve, and I all use Huber Woods. I've been using Advantech Subfloor for coming on probably 21 years now. I've been using Zip System and Zip System with the insulation on the back, the Zip R, since 2013. It's a system that I believe in. That systems approach where things play well together. They have design parameters that allow you to use their system for what you're working on. It works. Their tech support's there. Their knowledge is there. I've never had an issue with their product, and it's a great thing that they've decided to sponsor the podcast. So thank you, Huber Engineered Woods. Welcome to the Unbuild It podcast. I'm Jake Bruton, and today I am joined by my usual and most common co-host, Steve Basic.
Hello.
And Peter Yost.
Hey, Jake.
Hey, Steve. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize you two were going to banter back and forth in the opening.
Oh, hello.
Go ahead.
Really, you're surprised that we're bantering back and forth?
Go ahead.
Nice to see you, Peter. Hope all is well.
You're not going to return the niceties?
No.
I thought you wanted me to stop talking.
No, I'm giving you the opportunity to greet each other.
I couldn't think of a better way to spend a Thursday with the two of you.
Salutations.
It's Wednesday.
It is Wednesday, but I'm just kidding. It's not. It's Thursday. That's right.
You guys are messing with me. Come on.
So we have on the docket today for Friday.
Dementia and how to deal with it.
Oh, my.
I watched Peter Google how to deal with dementia yesterday on his computer. And when he started scrolling, all the links were already purple. He had clicked everything already.
All I can say is, and you told me I'm not going to be around by the time that you will be sympathetic.
No, yesterday.
We said you will not be around to see us grow old, is what we said. That's all.
Okay.
Listen.
And, spending time with you, death is probably preferable.
It's an option.
That's okay. When we were in Portland, I introduced somebody to Jay, our editor, in front of Peter. And I said, Jay is my oldest friend, as in I've been friends with Jay since we were 19 years old. And Peter went, I
took issue.
As in, no. I am the oldest person that you're friends with. And I was like, okay, well, if he's going to point it out. Okay, so we have a couple questions today. The first question comes all the way from New Zealand from Tim. So I want to say thanks first and foremost.
Yeah.
I didn't know they had the internet. And
I think you should.
Tim, I'm sorry. No, I'm just kidding.
I thought we should go out there and answer it personally.
I think we probably should. That would be a good one. I want New Zealand's on my list.
Can they put me in like stasis in a tube?
You're not already there?
So that I don't have to sit on an airplane.
You don't have to do a
3
plane.
days.
You can do a boat, and then you could be up and moving around.
We could do podcasts on the boat.
You could do a train. It probably wouldn't be successful, but you could do it.
I'm going to write this down, man.
Hello, Jake, Peter, and Steve. Local safety regulations vary considerably from country to country. Here in New Zealand, we roofers should generally expect a full set of metal scaffolding with a platform near gutter height and rope netting lining the ceiling plane of each room to prevent falls to the interior. While cumbersome at times, the scaffolding can be a fantastic tool when used to your advantage. I feel like when you're less concerned about accidentally dying, excuse me, you can be more focused on doing your work. What I want to ask is, have you noticed increased safety regulations having any discernible impact on the speed or quality of work being produced? Much appreciated, Tim. P.S. Can't thank you enough for the wealth of knowledge you put into the world, and though I'm still figuring out what my place in all this could be, I want to be part of the movement towards building better houses. Well, thank you, Tim. And I think you should be proud that you want to be part of the movement.
I think we need some statistics.
Building better houses.
So raise your hand if you've worked in the trades and you've fallen off a roof.
More than once.
More than once.
You guys are stupid.
Wait, raise your hand. Peter and I raised our hands. Raise your hand if you shot yourself with a nail gun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Peter and I.
Oh, raise
You
your
guys
hand.
are very stupid.
Raise your hand if your brother has shot you with a nail.
I don't know.
From a
I don't
nail
have a
gun.
nail gun. I don't know.
Right. I was up under an overhang I was probably 35 feet off the ground, and I was trying to shoulder up the ladder overhang on the rake so that I could get it so that the overhanging plywood would get caught.
Uh-huh.
And he shot a nail between my ear and my head. It bounced off, and here I am standing on top of this ladder, and wing right by here. That was scary. So yeah, I think back on all the times we were doing crazy stuff on roofs, and it's a miracle that wasn't one of us didn't get maimed or killed. So I don't know. I did think about it quite a bit, and I was a technical rock climber, so wasn't dealing with being afraid of.
Sorry.
What in the
Technically,
world?
he was a rock climber, is what he's saying.
No, back in the day, that's where you distinguish roped up climbing from not roped.
I'd like to tell you that I'm scared, but I'm like a cat on a construction site.
Is that right?
Yeah. Dude, I'll
Cat,
jog across that
meaning
top
you
plate.
are on all fours?
No, just
That was pretty funny.
pure agility up there, buddy.
I also have shot my dad twice with a nail gun, too.
Not a brother, but a dad.
I also
Fratricide
nailed
instead of
my own foot to the roof once, too. And
yeah.
if you ever catch me at the bar, I'll tell you the story about how I shot myself in the most private of areas with the nail gun.
I got myself right here putting in a piece of blocking, and
Okay, so that's today's wrap up of how to be stupid with a nail gun. Thanks, Peter and Jake, for sharing that with us. Hopefully, you all enjoyed that.
I will absolutely say, at least for my time in the industry, I 100% went from no ear protection and doing the safety squint, the using a grinder even with the safety squint, to absolutely not running anything without ears and eyes on and wearing respirators and taking care of myself. And I do think I don't think that evolution for me was something that was societal or had to do with understanding what OSHA wanted. I think that was absolutely just a maturity thing.
The other thing that I think happens is that if it's a rule or a regulation, it takes the macho out of things like roofing. Like somebody, I'm good at a 712, you know. And okay, if you're good at a 712, I guess I am too. But I'm really not good at a 712. So I think it takes a lot of pressure off. Hey, we got to do this. And I've watched roofers.
I do 7 and 12s and roller skates, man. A cat.
I have this picture.
Does them in roller blades.
A cat.
Why would you have roller skates on the roof, my friend?
Because it's macho.
Because it's macho. No, I think it changes everything on the roof, and it does allow you to focus because the guy across the street from me was a remodeler, and one of his sons was at a movie theater. The air conditioning unit went down. They went up to fix it, and he walked right off the back, took a 35-foot fall off a low slope roof, and he's permanently disabled in one of his legs, and he's lucky that that's the end of it. But
But I think his point is, or the point of his question is absolutely correct. Every time that I've tried to overextend my reach to be able to hit something with a nail and a hammer, like I'm thinking of specific times where I was holding aluminum nail for soffit and fascia with a pair of lineman's pliers and hitting it in with a hammer while extending as far as I possibly could.
Yeah.
That detail would have been better executed had I moved the ladder or been roped off and felt safer. Like the quality of work is absolutely better if you're taking your time and being safe in your work.
And the guy across the street from me used a lift routinely instead of setting up scaffolding or ladder jacks and planks and stuff. And he said, my productivity, all the time you spend, doing what you need to get that job site ready with scaffolding or the ladder systems, he said, I'm already up and running and I've got everything I need up in my box. So I borrowed that from him, and I thought, holy smokes, this is so much more productive.
Yeah. Or even
it's interesting, the fact that you're so safety conscious. I wasn't aware. So now I'm going to start demanding access, because when I come out to the job site, the contractor is supposed to provide the architect, if you're using the drawings, full access to inspect the site. And that means for me, it's what's the heavy ladders, type 3? 3A?
I don't know.
Or is it 1A?
I don't know what the qualification is. Yeah.
It's 300 pounds plus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I've never had one of those on your job site. So now I can just ask Brad or those guys.
Close attention to our ladders then.
Yeah.
Because I had a guy that used to work for me that I went and bought new ladders at one point, and I brought him to the job, and he said, "You may as well take those back." And I was like, "Why?" And he was substantially bigger than me. And he said, "Because I can't even put my tool bags on and stand on those because I'll be over the weight limit." And I looked at the side of him and I read it, and I looked at him, and he went, "I'm not kidding." And I was just like, well, okay. I had no idea you weighed that much. And I turned around and put them back in the truck, and I went back and bought 50-pound.
But I've been out to a lot of job sites and like, hey, do you guys have a ladder? And they bring this thing that looks like it got run over by a truck. Yeah. And they throw it up against the house. I'm like, I'm not climbing that thing.
Yeah. I know.
I'm going to come down through the middle of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Werner is smart enough to color code them for you too.
So in answering
the red ones.
Yes, I have all red ladders.
We have the red ones.
In answering his question, so we agreed that we don't have any data on this, but productivity is either the same or greater.
Or quality of work has to be better
quality
too.
Of work, yeah.
And even like you said, walk plank, we started at the very end of us self-executing everything. I quit using our just regular walk plank when we were doing cladding, and we started renting the double plank where it's like the plank with the workbench behind it. Because it was like, well, you're cutting siding like off of your knee and then holding it. And you're standing 30 feet in the air. It's way easier to just have that work table up there with you, and your quality of work gets way freaking better. Or
just rent a aerial lift there for a week.
Yeah.
Then you can get anywhere you want.
Sometimes it's a little difficult to do that, to get space wise.
When we were at Building Science Corporation, we used to rent Mars 150-foot lift.
There's no way to make that thing not feel jiggly.
Well, so here's the thing. It didn't bother me, but I used to go up there with like Neil Moyer, and the operator wouldn't go. He would just set the angle of the first arm, and then he's like, yeah, do whatever you want. So we'd get up there.
Do whatever you want.
And I'd like tap the button, and the thing would bounce about 8 or 10 inches. And Neil would be like white knuckled. He's like, don't do that. I'm like, what, this? And I'd toggle it and get that thing bouncing.
I went to a builder friend of ours job in Virginia Beach, who I'm not going to name. And the project manager, I said, hey, can we go up and look at the eave detail on this? I want to see the gutter detail that you're putting in. And he said, yeah. And I said, can we use the lift out back? And he said, yeah. And we went and climbed onto the lift. And like 45 seconds later, he still hadn't turned it on. He was looking at how to turn it on. And I said, I think I would rather somebody else come and run me up there. And he kind of looked at me and I said, we're going like 60 feet in the air. Is it okay if Russell, the framer, come and run me up there? And he just stared at me. He was pissed that I was like, I don't want you running me up there. Like, I don't know how to run the thing. And clearly you don't either. Like, he turned it on right away and moved me up there very cleanly and slowly. But okay, we have another question. This one's from Greg.
Well, hello, Greg.
Yeah. Hi, guys. I have a question about vapor barrier in a garage. Greg is in climate zone 6. I've edited your question just a slight bit, Greg. I'm not going to give away where you live and everything. The house is...
Is this the guy that's on 14 Spring Street in just outside of Flint, Michigan?
I didn't give away where you live, Greg. The house is, that's not where Greg lives. The house is continuous, or is it? The house is continuous R6 zip, and we'll have Rockwool R24 bat and finished with Sega Myrex to allow moisture to release back into the house where it can be dealt with. The garage is half-inch zip and is going to have Rockwool R22 bat and is finished with wall steel. I'm assuming that means the exterior side is steel. The garage is 1,500 square feet with two 8x10 garage doors in the front and an 8x6 garage door in the back. So 3 decent sized garage doors, in floor heat and a wall mounted heat pump. So like fully conditioned, even though he's fairly far north. It also has 2 exhaust fans to remove moisture. So dang, I want his garage, I guess. Question
It's
is,
a 6-car garage.
it's a pretty darn big garage. Yeah.
484 is 24 by 24, right?
Yeah.
2-car garage? Or is it 684?
Yeah, you're close to 684. I mean, 25 by 25 is
625.
Yeah.
625.
So 684. Or,
Question, do I still need a vapor barrier on the inside of the wall, or can I go without? From my understanding, it would have to be Sika Myrax like the house, or rather the 6 mil poly. So he's climate zone 6. So there is a poly requirement, or there is a vapor barrier requirement.
A vapor retarder requirement of some sort.
Yep.
Although, I'm not sure.
Because he's conditioning the space, it counts as conditioned space.
Okay.
Right?
So if he's been told, hey, this is conditioned space, and I have to follow
I think in my mind, the second you start putting all that conditioning in there, we call it conditioned space. I would as the builder.
The definition of conditioned space then has nothing to do with steady temperature. It's just if you're heating and or cooling it.
I think
that's
so.
Probably the case.
I think that's the way I would interpret it that's the way it's going to operate.
So
operate as conditioned space if you're running that stuff all the time.
To start off with, I think we always have these problem areas because they're confused. They don't know whether they're really inside space or really outside space. That's one thing.
it's in a garage.
Oh, that helps with my confusion. And the thing that always comes up when people say they want to have their garage conditioned with me is you're going to have to go from, a door that's, I don't know, $2,000 to install to one that's $12,000 to install.
And it's still going to be less.
And it's still like R5 at best.
And not airtight.
And it's R5 and it's not a 3068 door. Right. It's an 8x10 times 3.
Yeah.
It's a huge chunk of the wall.
And so every time you pull a door open, you're getting, outside air exchange. He's got 2 exhaust vents in there, probably because he wants to make sure that if you depressurize the garage, when you pull a car in and you turn the car off and there's all these exhaust fumes in there, when you open the door to the living space, if you got negative pressure out there, then that doesn't enter the house. That's a great idea. In fact, I know people that will activate those exhaust fans in the garage space that it's coupled to the door operation. So,
or motion detector. Artistic homes, we put motion detectors on a Panasonic fan. Fan.
Run for 15 minutes after motion.
And it just ran for a little bit.
That's nice.
So he specifically mentions poly, right?
He does.
Okay,
he said 6 mil poly, which is class 1.
And then he's talking about maybe switching to a smart vapor retarder for this space. And I think that's a complete waste of money, because the pressure on the system in terms of the difference between inside and outside is going to be reduced because it's a garage. You're going to be heating it sometimes, but not all the time. You're going to have the doors flash open and have tremendous air exchange. But I will tell you that we know that a class 1 vapor retarder that's 6 mil poly on the inside of the assembly in a cold climate can work, even if you don't have any drying potential to the outside, which he doesn't because
it's metal skin.
Yeah, and
but if it's
zip up against it, right?
Yep.
So it doesn't matter what the vapor permeability of the zip is. The polyiso has already got it down to a class 2 vapor retarder.
It's half-inch zip though. It's not zip bar on the garage.
Oh, it's not zip bar.
Okay.
So I'm going to say the wall steel. I'm going to guess that means it's like barn metal, and barn metal is not flat to the zip.
Yeah, it's probably corrugated.
It's corrugated, or it's pro rib.
If that's the case, the code calls that a vented cladding.
Yeah.
And then the requirements for the vapor retarder. Did you just use
air quotes?
I did.
He did on the podcast.
A couple of rabbit
that's good.
Sorry.
People will listen to that.
I heard it.
But we know that in Canada, and we don't know where this guy is, but we know that they...
Well, we do.
Flint,
Michigan, 14 Spring Street.
No, he is actually in Canada. The question does come from.
But we've never learned how to detail 6 mil poly as also an air control layer, but they have figured that out. And 6 mil poly does work in cold climates if it's detailed also as an air control layer. If it's not, then kind of all hell breaks loose. But I think that, I have gotten called into garages that are not working properly, but it's always because they've put a paper-faced product as the interior finish. And if you're going to have really, really high moisture conditions in that space, because you pull it in the winter, it's covered with snow, and you don't have exhaust fans running all the time. And so the moisture content in the air goes way up. And I had one project where it was a relatively new house. They had put in Lunos to get some air exchange in there.
Which are fans, for people that don't know, right?
Which are ERVs, right? Yeah. So, but I got called back to the project because we had last summer in New England, we had more than 30 consecutive days where the dew point temperature really never dropped below 70. So what were the ERVs doing? They were pulling in air that had a greater moisture content than what was in the garage to begin with. And they got this surface mold all over the ceiling, where not at the taped seams, but in the field of the drywall, and not where they switched from primer paint there. When you got over to the hallway going to the house, that was finished latex paint. So there was no mold growth on the latex paint. There was no mold growth on the taped seams. It was where the paper was exposed with a latex primer paint, and it was just shot with mold. And so the conditions in the garage, I worry more about sort of incidental conditions in there when people bring in tons of things that they're not trying to moisture protect. This garage had all kinds of cardboard boxes and leather golf bags, and then it was growing mold.
Sounds like a confused space.
It does.
I think I've
Do you think the mold you were just describing on the gypsum, it was happening where you were describing it instead of on the taped areas because it was easier to access the paper on the gypsum through the latex instead of through the mud and all that?
The mud was not supporting mold growth, but the quote air quotes exposed paper was, because
just a quicker access.
It was a quick primer. I mean, you know how the garages get done like that. And it was just, there was too much access to the paper as food, and they were pulling in outside air, and it was dropping below the dew point in this garage all the time because it was just so bloody wet outside. Yeah. But I'll tell you the other interesting thing about this project was the uphill side of the garage, water was running in directly against the wall. And I said, there's a lot of water, right up against there. He says, oh, it's not a problem. There's a perimeter drain that drains out over there, like probably 100 feet away, sort of down and under the driveway. And I said, oh, well, let's go look at the drain to daylight then. We spent 2.5 hours searching for the drain to daylight. And when we finally found it, we pulled out a plug of soil and roots that was 2.5 feet long. And I said, okay, so
we call that a drain turd.
A drain turd. I said, now you're going to get full drainage. That one garage wall is going to get a lot drier because all that water was just dumping into the garage there. So anyway.
So your assessment is it's not worth the Myrex cost.
No.
Just because 6 mil poly is so darn cheap, and you can easily install it as an air control layer. You can detail it to the T. What's your preferred tape in that
Could
instance?
Use membrane too.
You could. I don't think in that space it's the type of vapor retarder that's going to make the decision about this. It's going to be what are you going to store in the garage? Because what I see in there is surface, all kinds of surfaces getting mold growth on it, because it's not being conditioned consistently enough to take care of that moisture that enters the garage. But also, just like any other space, if you're not managing bulk water, you're probably going to end up with a problem. And if it's not airtight, and it's not because of the doors, but I think that space requires sort of more care about how connected it is to outside conditions, and just be careful what you store there, and don't put in paper-faced drywall.
I will say that, like at my house, you say it's not very airtight. It's effectively a tuck under garage because we have living space above it.
Yeah.
And we have 2 walls that are interior walls. When you open the door to the house or the door to outside, the walk doors, the garage doors jiggle because it's so tight.
Yep.
And if you pull a car in and then you close all the doors in 10 minutes, the entire garage that's maybe 700 or 800 square feet, maybe 1,000 square feet, it gets hotter in there immediately. Like it raises 10 degrees. Like you can get it pretty darn airtight without too terrible much effort. And it can be a challenge. And we have quite a bit of air control in that system.
I've never blower door tested a garage space.
I haven't either.
To know, if you do have, because there are doors that claim to be at least more airtight, and I've never tested one to see actually.
And Thermotrex.
Yeah, they have where each of the rollers lands. It has an indent that pushes the door out just a little bit.
Thermotrex.
TRAX.
Yeah. Cool.
We've never used them.
I'm gonna maybe
we can do mine.
Maybe the next time
I did a video. You guys should watch it.
A video of
Thermotrex.
But did you
blower door testing a garage?
No.
No.
Let's make sure we do that before
I went in
the
there
next
just
time we
breathe
record.
heavy.
Okay, so the second part of my question: do you have a tape that you like with poly?
There is a particular.
What's the red one from 3M? I can never remember its name.
The 8067.
Yeah,
3M.
okay.
I've never tried that on poly, but
I think it works pretty well.
the Stego wrap tape, right, which is designed specifically for
the red one from Stego works really well.
Yeah,
it's got
good.
a good.
I've never tested that tape, but because the polyethylene is basically a bond break material, so it's hard to get stuff to stick to it. But
yeah, the red tape from Stego does stick really well. I can't attest to 10 years down the line because we always covered up with concrete within 6 weeks. But
my memory is that the 8067 doesn't stick particularly well with poly, but I've never.
Sega's, what's it? The
Reson?
Reson tape probably sticks to it.
I bet
said
it
that's
does.
very
That's
aggressive.
I haven't
really
tried it.
aggressive.
Someone said that's the most aggressive tape.
I'm going to make a note here.
I've
Tape
tried it
test.
on their Myrex and it sticks very well.
Yeah.
So
I'm making a note that if we do any one more wing nut testing, I'm going to definitely test tapes on poly.
okay.
Cool.
Sounds like an 80s album. Tapes on poly.
Tapes on poly.
Tell Steve
And they have
the
big
band
dumb
name
hats.
Yeah.
The band name you came up with.
Dehumidifier Graveyard. It was something that
It's
Nikki
too
said.
much. Too much.
I don't know. I kind of like it.
I like it, but it's too much.
Little too technical, maybe.
They're ska. They're a ska band.
Speaking of 80s, how do you get a country girl's attention?
How?
A tractor.
Thank you for listening to the podcast today. Have a good day.
See ya.
Bye-bye.